Good morning. The June 15th, 2021 meeting of the Charter Authorizing Panel is called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Department of Education auditorium and ask you to please silence all electronic devices. Our charter panel is in person and on the Zoom, so I'd like to welcome them this morning. Philip Baldwin, Sonia Wright McMurray, Dr. Eric Flowers, and online with us today is Emmeline Pilkington and Dr. Nakama Williams. Let's see. And is Mr. Hodges going to join us after his meeting, possibly? Okay. And Ms. Newton? Not here. Okay, perfect. So today we have before us some digital learning applications that we will hope to move through an expedited process, and then I believe we will have 3 hearings for the day as well. So without any further ado, unless there's an announcement from any panel member, let's start with the minutes from the May meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Baldwin and a second from Ms. Wright McMurray to approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, Mr. Johnston, and just to welcome Tim Johnston, he is our new charter director for our division. We're happy to have him. If you'll present our first digital learning application.
Good morning. Yes. Eastham Charter School has submitted an amendment for a digital learning program for grades K through 12 for all campuses. The school will offer asynchronous and synchronous instruction with virtual and blended options through the use of approved digital provider and a licensed district staff. And the application has been reviewed by the DESE team, and we do have John Bacon on the Zoom for any questions.
All right, panel members, as you were reviewing the digital application through our expedited process, just to let you know, this has been reviewed by a committee at DESE, so 16 plus people have looked at it and given feedback, and by the time it comes to you, that means it has met all of the expectations of the division. So we will start with any questions. Dr. Williams, do you want to start us? Dr. Williams, we have a very bad connection with you. No, sir, it's still really bad. If you'll disconnect and come back on, he will do it. Ms. Pilkington, do you have any questions to get us started?
I don't. I reviewed the application and it looked great.
Okay. Ms. Wright McMurray, do you have questions?
No, not this time.
Mr. Baldwin, do you have questions?
No, I'm good.
Dr. Flowers?
No questions.
Okay. All right. Leave it to me. Mr. Bacon, would you just give us a brief, very brief, explanation of, I saw that you are expecting to have approximately 119 students participate in your digital learning plan, and I'm sure that that was in the planning and now we're closer to reality. So tell us what you think reality will be.
We think that we'll probably have a higher percentage in our elementary school than we will in the secondary level. We've really tried to communicate as clearly as we can with our families that really our first priority is getting students back in school. And so we did this survey we didn't have a real high response rate, but based on those numbers, I mean, I would anticipate we will have interest at our elementary schools, probably enough to have maybe one teacher per grade level who would need to serve, maybe the 20-ish to 25 students per grade. Junior high and high school, I'm hoping it'll be even lower than that.
Williams?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Perfectly.
Okay, thank you. My only question was going to really be, since we've discussed this process a couple of times, is whether anything stood out to department staff that we would probably need to consider.
Give me just a second. I'll pull up our notes and see if there was anything.
While we're doing that, I do have a question for Mr. Bacon. I just wanted to kind of get an update of how things going on at the various schools at ULR's campus and so forth.
Well, as everyone would say, this was probably the most challenging year of my career and everyone else's. But I would say I appreciate the question about our high school campus on the UA Little Rock campus. We have really, for the last 2 years, been working very hard on our partnership there, and I can't speak highly enough about Dr. Christy Drayle, the chancellor over there, and her willingness to be open to me and our team. And it feels like we've really turned a corner in that relationship. And I'm just looking so forward to this next year, being able to really flesh out what we had hoped when we first came up with this partnership idea several years ago. I really think we're in a great place there. And all of our other campuses, we feel like are in good shape as well.
Okay, thank you. Just one follow-up. Given you're looking at going synchronous and asynchronous in the learning, how do you expect that to affect your on-campus enrollment?
So our first priority with our virtual option is synchronous. That's the way we did it this year. We had students who were virtual learners, either not coming to campus at all or maybe coming 2 to 3 days a week. They followed a normal schedule. So we expected them to be up and zoomed in online, connecting with the classes as the class meet throughout the day. The synchronous was really just a way to kind of record some of the lessons and have them available. We've been using things like Google Classroom and the itslearning.com portal at our high school for a number of years. So our students and families and staff are pretty comfortable with just knowing that there's a portal to go to find lessons, to find PowerPoint presentations, if you miss class and you need to do some catch up. And so we really plan on using that kind of asynchronous as really just a fallback piece. Anyone that participates in our virtual program, we're going to be asking them to participate synchronously, and so joining the classes live to the extent possible.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Dr. Williams, our district support team had no concerns. Our technology team had no concerns. Learning services approved as well, and educator effectiveness had no concerns regarding this application. Mary Claire, when can you come and tell us when their charter expires?
I can tell you June of 2023.
2023?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, we're doing a 2-year approval?
June 30th, yes.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? If not, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Dr. Williams and a second by Mr. Baldwin. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you
And
very much.
as you know, that will have to go to the state board for review or not review, but we'll be sure to get those on their agenda.
Thank you.
Thank
appreciate
you. Have a
you
good
all.
day. Tim?
Okay, the next one on the agenda is Graduate Arkansas, and they have submitted an amendment for digital learning program for grades 9 through 12. The school will offer asynchronous instruction virtually through the use of an approved digital provider, and the application has been reviewed by the DESE team. I'm trying to get in contact with Katie Hatley, she's not on the Zoom that I can see. Oh, you're in person? Okay, that's a lot. Okay, she's here in person. So if you have any questions, she is available.
We get excited when we see a real person. All right. Ms. Hatley, yeah, if you'll just come on up and we'll start with Dr. Williams. Do you have questions?
Just more a general question. This may not be the right thing to do, but I'm taking this opportunity to kind of get an update on some of these schools. You know, Ms. Hatley has done an outstanding job with the school, and some may know or may not know of the type of students that they serve. So my first question would be, Ms. Hatley, could you just kind of give us an overview of how this last year has gone for you, especially with the students you could serve? We do have some new board members, so I think it would be helpful for you to, just talk about that a little bit also.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everybody. Our mission is to serve dropout recovery prevention. We enroll students who are over age 17 and under credit, 6 credits. So they're not going to graduate on time. I've always enrolled students who have been expelled or even pending expulsion. I work with adjudicated youth, work with DHS, family students who are in foster care to provide opportunities to graduate. This past year was just unbelievable. When COVID hit and after students were having to quarantine, going back to school, being around another peer, having to quarantine, our enrollment just shot out of the roof. I'm gonna just be honest. So we enroll students from everywhere, work with them virtually. The board and the Ready for Learning Committee narrowed down the on-campus instruction to 2 days and 2 days virtually, but teachers still had the opportunity to work on campus and work with these students and help them grow. 50 graduates. 50 was just the largest number I've ever had. But I will say that not all students got the opportunity to work virtually, especially the younger students. They came on campus, but we just, provide another avenue for a child to get an accredited high school diploma. We also work with the military. They bring a lot of students there for that diploma. Dr. Williams, I don't know if I went in depth enough.
Oh, yes, you did.
Okay.
And could you, being such a unique school with the population that you serve, could you talk just a little bit about how you all would use the virtual piece going forward?
I will. So people may not know, we opened up with a digital curriculum in 2011. We never had textbooks. We've always had one-to-one devices for our students. This past year, of course, we jumped on board and ordered Chromebooks because we figured a lot of students would be virtual, when in reality only about half, or not even half, maybe a third of our students were. But having a digital curriculum for our students 18 to 21, who work, they have full-time jobs. Some of our students are parents, 2 to 3 kids. So being able to access the curriculum, after hours, but not really being able to take the assessments until they can schedule a time with the teacher has always worked, and it continues to work. So just giving students access and allowing them to work at their own pace. And we say self-paced, but if they're not meeting goals, and if they're still on the same lesson, for not even a day, a couple hours, then that's closely monitored. And that's how we take away the virtual option and students have to come to campus and work with the teachers on campus.
Thank you. Just a comment for the board in general is that, when we look at the eSTEM that just came before us and Graduate Arkansas, the population they serve tend to be on different spectrums here. But I think it goes to the people that both Mr. Bacon and Ms. Hatley and the department in creating an opportunity for no matter who our students are or where they come from, that they're providing an excellent opportunity for them to learn. So nothing else from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Ms. Pilkington?
No, that was a great explanation. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Wright McMurray?
Only question that I have, I just wanted to get a better sense of what the student action logs are that are going to be monitoring attendance, and that's just for my knowledge, just to get a sense of how that's going to be done.
So we use the Ingenuity Learning Management System. In that system, on the student action logs, you can see what time they logged in, how long they were on. You not only see student interaction, you see teacher interaction from day one, once that student starts. So we generate a lot of data from that and are able to make, decisions whether or not that really determines if a student should come to campus. And I will say, Dr. Williams was talking about the school. We have a full body metal detector at the door and an officer. We even have a state trooper who works at the school. He just believes in the mission so much. And our campus is COVID free because of that thermal camera we installed that reads your body temperature outside the door and once you get inside.
Thank you.
Dr. Flowers, do you have questions?
Yes. You mentioned about when your students are working online, if they're not keeping up with their assignments, they're required to come in regards to monitoring attendance. Can you talk to me a bit about that process?
Yes, sir. So once we look at the data and they're not working or meeting goals,
Yes.
and they're usually minors, so we just get in touch with the parent, and we've not had any pushback and tell them they must come on campus. And this year it was Tuesdays and Wednesdays, because
Okay.
Monday they can work virtual on Thursday. But Tuesday and Wednesday, they must stay all day,
Okay.
and they did.
Awesome, thank you.
And Dr. Hatley, you're still running a 4-day week,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Okay.
Miss Hadley.
Mr. Baldwin?
I really liked your application. You did a
Thank
good
you.
job on this, very thorough, and I have no questions on that, but I do have a question about, and this is something totally different from this, but I was just with the type of student that you serve, the non-traditional student, is the funding the same for you as other charter schools? Does the state support you per person, or do you have to go raise money on your own and support yourself through fundraising?
I will say we do get the student foundation funding, but the way the metrics is set up, we really don't get funded for that student because with the mastery model, a student may need 2 credits and they can come in and they may be gone in 2 weeks. So the answer to that would be no, right? Dr. Cummings Cochran? Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yes,
so,
sir.
yeah, thank you.
I'm going to ask Mary Claire to join us as well. Just stay there. So in addition to your digital learning application, you also have an increase in enrollment cap request. And Mary Claire, I think you have some waiver questions to ask Ms. Hatley.
Mary Claire Hyatt with ADE. No, it's nothing. It's just one little clarification piece on their digital learning application. So class size for virtual high school courses, there's no class size because they are 100% virtual. So they don't need the class size waiver. They do have it for their in-person school. So it's not that big of a deal, but we've had a lot of conversation about class size and teaching load as it relates to digital learning, and for the sake of making sure everything is exactly in order. They don't need that one class size piece, so if you'll just confirm that for me.
I confirm.
And that's the only thing, and just if you'll allow me to make one personal comment, I did get the opportunity to visit Graduate Arkansas. Tim and Tracy let me tag along on a charter monitoring, and I was so impressed. And my first year doing charter, they had 6 graduates, and this year 50. And it seriously brought tears to my eyes when she told me that at the monitoring, because the kids that were there were engaged in learning. The facility was so colorful and fun, and it's just amazing that kids that are oftentimes getting a second chance are getting a second chance. That's so fantastic. So thank you for humoring me for a minute.
Ms. Hatley, will you talk to us a little bit about your capping, your enrollment cap? Talk to us a little bit why you want, you're going from 275 to 1,500. That's
Yes,
big.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I know
I
the
will.
size of your building.
Well, this is for the virtual, and I'm gonna just be honest, we just submitted an amendment request. And I don't wanna talk ahead of that, but I went ahead and put that on here for 2 reasons. For partnerships, Right now, in the past, we enrolled students and worked with probation officers and through DHS. But now DHS has a contract with grade results for the entire state of Arkansas. So they're using us to assist them with that process, but we were enrolled and take care of all the state mandated things and let them work on the academic piece. So we're just afraid that with the success that I've had last year, I just want to make sure I can meet the need.
How many students do you currently have enrolled?
I knew you were going to ask that. Maybe 80, maybe a little more. I didn't look at that. But we enroll students every day throughout the year.
Right. And I mean, I understand that your students come in, try to get what they need,
And they graduate.
get out, and that's the beauty of the model. They're not time bound.
Yes, ma'am.
You're trying to get credits.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how many students your building is approved for?
So we have desktops, we have about 80, and Chromebooks, we have about 250. So with that cap of 275, we can fit about 200 students in there comfortably. We can use the boardroom or other offices to increase that, but we just don't foresee that many students just bombarding us on campus because our graduate, 18 to 21 was our largest percentage. And these students are working, have full-time jobs and children at home. So that's the beauty of the model, that they can work and, get online with teachers when they can and complete.
Do you have enough resources to serve 1,500 students?
Absolutely.
So you would have laptops, hotspots, everything they need
Absolutely.
to do that. And when does your charter expire?
I just got a 7-year renewal. I want to say 25.
June 30th,
26.
Go ahead.
So that brings a question. So you described a very good process that if students struggle while they're working remote, then they do need to come into the site. And so if we go to 1,500, what is that going to look like for that larger amount of students? If we start to see challenges there, will they also follow that same process of having to come on site? And I guess just a little bit more detail of what that's going to look like for that larger group of students.
So right now, we're just still trying to hash that out, but when we use partnerships, they're able to come in, step in and help. But like I said, they're older students. We may have a few 17-year-olds, but almost no 15 to 16-year-olds. Those 17-year-olds are usually in trouble. It's usually just a adjudicated youth. They've either been incarcerated or, just getting out and needed to jump on an educational platform. But the number of resources, and I just don't want to talk ahead of myself, but we're going to discuss that in the amendment request.
Okay.
But that's why we put in the amendment request, because we're actually working with Job Corps again.
Okay.
And they have 300 students on site. So, teachers will be on their campus working with those students. They will not be virtual.
So I'll wait till the
It's just
amendment
different,
question.
facets of the model, to just be honest.
So Ms. Hatley, should we postpone the enrollment cap until that time with your amendment?
I mean, it's been debated by this. It's up to you, because we did ask for an amendment cap increase for 1,500 for the virtual, but it was really for the total charter.
Mary Claire?
Mary Claire Hyatt with the department. So I talked with their attorney, David Jones, about this on the phone yesterday. So they have submitted an amendment request, which will be on the next month's agenda, that is fleshing out more of these partnership pieces. So you will hear those pieces. The enrollment cap increase, is my understanding, is partially and mostly for virtual, because they're going to partner with kids that are incarcerated, kids that are in foster care, and so they're going to have more kids that are accessing just the virtual curriculum, not on campus. And then because they're entering into these other partnerships rather than do two.
What if
two separate back-to-back amendment requests for an enrollment increase.
He was
I
close
think
to
someone
it, so
on
I
the
just
Zoom
texted
is
him
not
to check
muted.
in. He told me that
Reagan.
apparently he's heard two things.
Reagan
that
Burnside,
one,
if
they
you'll
were in
please mute your
financial
mic.
trouble, and then a second one was that he had COVID.
Ms.
and
Burnside,
you can mute yourself. So, shoot.
So rather than do back-to-back amendment requests for an enrollment increase, I thought it would be better to just do a one-time enrollment increase. Of course, it is at the will of the panel, so if you prefer to hear just an enrollment increase for the digital kids right now, and then another enrollment increase next month for the partnerships, we can do it that way.
well, both would, I mean, the enrollment, I would like to hear the whole story myself, but even next month, we would have it in time for school to start. Correct?
Say that again?
If we waited on the enrollment cap till next month when we could hear the full story, then I would feel more confident and have a better picture of where we're going. And we could do it at that time. That would still give time before school starts, correct?
Because I think it would be on the August state board agenda, which is right around the time that school starts. So if that works for them, it's fine.
Does that work?
with me.
I'm seeing,
Yes.
Doctor, I'm seeing lots of head nods here.
Yeah.
Ms. Pilkington, Dr. Williams, you want to weigh into that conversation?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I like that there's still time for it to be implemented for the next school year.
Agree.
So I think, Ms. Hatley, we all believe in what you're doing. I would encourage every charter member to come and visit. Closed on Fridays, right? Open Monday.
Not closed to students, but we still work, and if we have PD or something scheduled.
Yeah. But it's certainly, the kids are amazing,
Thank you.
and their stories are unbelievable, but their persistence is powerful.
Their resiliency.
They are. All right. Any other questions? So if we have a motion on the digital learning application,
I move approved.
I have a motion by Ms. Wright McMurray.
Second.
Dr. Flowers made a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Your digital learning program is approved until 2026 and goes before the state board next month for review or not review.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
and
you
then
all.
we'll consider your enrollment cap at the next meeting with the rest of the information.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim?
Tim Johnston, DESI Charter Unit. Next on the agenda is Lisa Academy. They've submitted an amendment for a digital learning program in grades K through 12 for all campuses. The school will offer asynchronous and synchronous instruction virtually through the use of an approved digital provider and licensed district staff. The application has been reviewed by the DESI team, and Luann Baroni is available on Zoom for any questions.
All right, good morning, everyone. Dr. Williams, if you'd like to start with questions for Ms. Baroni?
Yes. Just give me a quick overview. You know, Lisa has done a great job in years past of just opening up new schools and providing call it a college prep curriculum moving forward. What will this allow you all to do that you're not already doing, since you do very well what you've been doing?
Well, I think the offering the digital learning will help us with particularly students who are not comfortable yet due to the pandemic coming back on campus full time. Our plan is to use the Florida Virtual School curriculum for this program, and we're going to utilize the staff from our hybrid school, which is opening this fall, to deliver that. So we'll have a staff dedicated to providing digital learning and, you know, fully focused on that. As everyone experienced last year, it was tough for teachers to try to juggle the on-site and virtual at the same time. And so we feel like offering this option for our students attached to local campuses and offering that through our hybrid school staff will help us have a better focus and to do an even better job of delivering that digital curriculum.
Hey, and just to follow up, I remember the hybrid school model now. And this ADE staff may need to help me with this. Will this allow you to do something different than what you've been doing, or is this just kind of the certification to do what you're doing?
Well, we started last year, of course, as everyone did, with offering digital learning because we had to. This will just allow us to do that, I think, in a more effective way, with a more pre-planned, thoughtful approach than what we did before. The virtual part is not extremely different than what we did last year in terms of logistics, but in terms of the way we're delivering the curriculum, it is different because we're going to be doing it through our hybrid school using that Florida virtual curriculum, which will offer both the synchronous and asynchronous learning for students.
Is the hybrid school the only school, you know, Lisa has several schools. Is the hybrid school the only school that's going to be offering this?
No, it's going to be available for students on all of our campuses. We will just funnel the instruction through our hybrid school staff since they'll be set up to deliver everything virtually through that staff.
Thank you.
Ms. Baroni, just for clarification, because the one note I wrote was trying to make myself understand the difference between your digital learning application and your hybrid school. So in the hybrid school, you're anticipating those students would enroll in that school for the year. And
Correct.
Then with this digital learning application, you're anticipating that possibly some of these students that are enrolled in your other schools would participate in digital learning, but maybe are you working to get them back on site?
Yes, I mean, it will be treated like virtual students were this past year in terms of allowing them to come back full-time on site. They will be tied to their local campus. For instance, if a student is enrolled at our Lisa West Elementary School but chooses to be virtual, they will be attached to that Lisa West Elementary campus for support. Their curriculum will just be delivered through the hybrid. The difference is those students who are specifically enrolled in our hybrid school will be enrolled in that and will be required to do the on-site attendance that's required within the hybrid school, which is a little different format than just a virtual student who's virtual because of health concerns or other concerns.
Ms. Pilkington, do you have questions?
I do. Just one question. I apologize. I'm new to the panel, so if this has already been asked. Did you do asynchronous learning last year with your younger grades, your K through 5? And how successful was that?
We did a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. As I think everyone found, the asynchronous was a challenge with a lot of kids who didn't have that at-home support, and for teachers who were trying to teach both students on site and deliver that. So we feel like with this dedicated staff doing just the virtual hybrid piece, that will help some with that. We have built in a contract for parents of students who choose the virtual option, and part of that agreement is that if the student is not successful, that there will be a mandatory meeting to review the success of that student and potentially a recommendation for them to move back to on campus. Because we know that all kids don't do great learning virtually, and so we wanted to build in some safety net there for kids who are struggling virtually. You know, we've had a lot of kids who've done great virtually because they've got parental support at home, and you know they can run through the curriculum and even move forward. But we wanted to set up those safety nets for those kids who are struggling. because we did see some of that last year.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Murray, questions?
I appreciate you recognizing that some students, may or may not do as well as we would like virtually. Can you speak a little bit more to what are some of those supports or interventions that you are thinking about to address those concerns as they arise?
Yeah, initially we would, if we see a student struggling, would reach out to the parents, of course, to try to resolve the problem and see what the problem is. We are asking parents to come to campus for a meeting or have a virtual meeting to discuss what the student's struggling with. If they're not being successful completely virtually, we would ask them to come in for intervention, which we already have set up in all of our schools. We've had a very strong intervention program for years. And that would be particularly in the core areas. We have interventions set up so that they would meet with an academic coach on campus and try to meet the deficits, try to bring those up to standard.
Dr. Flowers?
Yes, thank you. I was reading and I noticed that your elementary and middle school teachers will serve both roles in regards to online and face-to-face instruction. But at the high school level, your teachers will only serve in an online role. So can you talk to me about staffing? Have there been any concerns as you plan?
Yeah, right now, as I mentioned, when we submitted this application, we were just in the process of working on our hybrid staffing, but our plan right now is to utilize our hybrid staff to provide the instruction for both the virtual students and the hybrid students. That would eliminate teachers having to teach both on-site and virtual. So as much as we're able to do that, we're going to stick with just the hybrid school staff delivering the virtual curriculum.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
There's two questions. On the clock hour waiver, you all say in the application that the students will self-pace much of their work and will not adhere to a traditional school day. Could you expand on that, and especially as it relates to the younger grades?
Sure. I think that, and I'm not looking at the details because that's still getting worked out, all the daily schedule and everything. But with the younger students, we definitely would require more contact, more synchronous learning with the younger students. With the older students, it's a lot more independent kind of work that they can do with the asynchronous learning through Florida Virtual School. I don't claim to be an expert on that, but we have chosen to go with that because we've seen the success of that, particularly with the Fayetteville Virtual School, and we made the choice to go with that curriculum because of the strength of that. But with the younger students, we definitely have more of the synchronous learning built into the schedule that we're building for those younger students.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was over where you talk about the manner and frequency that the school uses to monitor student engagement. You say that that Lisa has an established home visit program which can be conducted virtually, and I was just curious how the virtual home visit occurs.
Yeah, we actually did that this past year and had a lot of success with that. Teachers or administrators simply schedule a meeting. We use Google Meets for most of our virtual meetings. They simply schedule a meeting with parents, and typically those are in the evenings or weekends when parents are available. And we have done those the same way we did the in-home visits, where we're just touching base with the family, asking them how their students doing, asking them ways that we can better serve their students. We don't set those up as a policing kind of thing where we go in and say, little Johnny's being bad in school or not doing well in class. It's more of a getting to know the families. And it has actually worked pretty well virtually because I think it's parents are a little more willing to invite us in virtually because that doesn't feel quite as frightening as having school people show up at their house. So we'll continue doing that. We will also do the live visits again as we're able to do those. But The virtual actually has not been a problem for us with the home visits.
Thank you.
Ms. Baroni, how many students are you expecting to participate in your digital learning program?
Right now, and granted, I've been on vacation for a week, so I'm looking at the numbers that someone else put in here. But right now, we're looking at probably, with virtual learning, around 240 students who have said they're interested in that, and another approximately 100 students who would be exclusively in the hybrid. And that is, an ongoing application processing that's going on this summer.
And Tim, their charter expires in?
2030.
June of 30.
2030. Mary Claire. So that is a 7-year approval for a digital learning application. And you've been at all of our state board meetings where they've primarily looked at 3 years or so and, wanting to get more data at that time. Any guidance for us?
The panel can approve whatever it wants. So the request as it stands would be until their charter expires, 7 years. You can shorten your approval via motion if you want. I have been at all of the state board meetings where they've heard these. They have only granted them up to 3 years. As Ms. Kaufman said, there have been concerns, especially if there's any type of K-6 instruction, wanting to have a check-in in 3 years to look at reading data and look at the growth of the students in K-6. So those have been the primary concerns coming from the board. So they have only approved up to 3 years. Now, of course, all of those are for traditional school districts. So in the charter context, it's a little different. They might be more willing to go above the 3 years, but they have been pretty firm on that in the applications that they've heard. So up to the panel, how long you wish to approve it for. If you approve it as is, it would be until the charter expires, or you can change it via motion for a set number of years.
So, Mary Claire, don't leave me. So, if we approved until the charter expires, we could ask for a full data report at the end of 3 years when we're reviewing all of the others, and at that time make a decision whether or not to continue this or rescind this. Is that right?
Of course. So if you wish to have some sort of reporting at the end of 3 years or however many years, just include that in the motion that you make. It's helpful if you'll explain what kind of reporting you want so that when we make those notes, so that we can remind the school in 3 years that we know exactly what it is that you want. And then they can come and present that information at that time. If you feel like the data doesn't support the continuation of the program, you can always revoke that part of the program or revoke the waivers that are attached to that program then. And then, of course, it would go to the state board to review that decision.
Thank you. Ms. Baroni, would you anticipate that in the next 3 years that you will have learned a lot and want to adjust your application? Kind of give us your feel.
I think it's entirely possible. I think the immediate concern for us is being able to serve the students during the remainder of the pandemic period. We didn't want that option to go away for students, so we feel like we really need that in the current climate. As you know, our hybrid school is starting this fall, which is a whole new thing that we're trying to be innovative and test drive and see. So that option is available, which is, a blend of virtual and on-site. Our preference always is for the students to be involved on campus, because we have seen and believe that they're more successful when they're involved on campus. So I don't think the either reporting or just a 3-year approval throws a real wrench in anything that we're trying to do right now with the virtual or digital option. So whatever the panel thinks is best, I think we would be willing to work with.
Panel members, any discussion? Ms. Wright McMurray?
Just my thoughts would be, because I know that a lot of this right now is responsive to our current environment, and as we move forward, that may not be the case. And this is just, I guess, my lack of knowledge on the part of, if we come back later and we say we're revoking something, what does that look like for the school to have something that's been revoked, you know, that when we could have at this point just amended or reduced the amount of time. So that would be my preference, if we just reduce the time right now.
Same concern. And then also, if we say 3 years. That's my same concern as well. And then also, if we say approve up to 3 years, what types of reporting will we request from them at that time period?
So we've done 3 years with many of our others, and what they will have to do is resubmit a new waiver or a new application at that time and bring data. Of course, we'll have a revised our application to include all that data, and that will give us 2 years of summative data to provide to them. I would think, Ms. Baroni, correct me if I'm wrong, but in your efforts, as I see what you're trying to do, as in serve the kids through the pandemic, we would hope by 3 years that the pandemic is a memory, we hope. And of course, we don't know, we'll have to adjust at that time, but I would assume by that time, if the pandemic is just a memory, that students that really want to continue long-term in a digital program might move into the hybrid school. Is that your thinking?
That's what I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Baldwin?
Yes, I like the 3-year approval also. It seems more simple, which is usually good. Let me ask the Lisa Academy, did you all, when you were filling this out, were you aware of the 3-year guidance from the State Board of Education, and you chose to request 7, or did you just request 7 because that was when your charter expired?
I was not a part of any discussions about the time frame on it, so I personally was not aware that it ran for the whole life of the charter. I thought that it was limited, but so as I said, that has not been a big part of it. It's really been in response to providing during the pandemic, providing that digital option for students who want to stay attached to their current campuses.
Dr. Williams, any additional?
Yes, this sounds good, but a couple questions for Desi. For the just current public schools, it's only 3 years.
The board has approved, I want to say around 30 applications for traditional public schools. Don't quote me on that number, but it's around there. And all of the applications have been approved for either 3 or 1 year. And the ones that were approved for 1 year, it was at the request of the actual applicant. And all of the other ones were approved for 3. We had lots of schools that originally requested 5 years for their 1240 waivers to do the digital program. And the board was very resistant to that because of the newness, I think, of digital learning and wanting to make sure, especially for K-6 programs, that they had data to support a lengthier program. So that's how we got to 3 years, because if they only approved it for 1 year, we wouldn't have any data to look at. At the end of 3 years, we will have 2 years of summative data to look at, so an initial year and then a comparative year, and that's how we got to the 3 years. So at the end, as Ms. Kaufman said, of the 3 years, schools will reapply for an extension of their digital program. The department will help these schools with the information that they need to provide to show whatever data pieces the board and the panel want to see through that application process, a lot like we did this time.
Thank you. I'm good with 3. It's consistency of treating all schools the same. and we'll get the same data, then we can learn from them.
Ms. Pilkington, any additional questions or conversation? All right, hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
Do we need to adjust the motion for the time period, or?
Yes, please. So if you will just, if you wish to approve it, move to approve 4, and then the amount of years that you wish to approve it for.
I could have used a little bit more help on the actual, how that motion should sound there.
If you wish to approve it for 3 years, then the motion should be moved to approve the application for 3 years.
Then I move to approve the application for 3 years. Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Williams and a second by Ms. Wright McMurray to approve the Lisa Academy Digital Learning Program for 3 years. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Baroni. We'll see you at the State Board meeting for review or not review. Tim?
Next on the agenda is Friendship Aspire Academy of Little Rock, and they've submitted an amendment for a digital learning program, grades K through 8. The school will offer asynchronous and synchronous instruction virtually through the use of an approved digital provider and licensed district staff. The application has been reviewed by the DESE team, and their charter expires June of 2023. We have Joe Harris, CEO of Friendship Education Foundation, Fong Tran, the superintendent, and Virginia Perry, deputy superintendent, on via Zoom.
All right. Good morning, team.
Good morning.
Dr. Williams, would you like to start with your questions?
I wasn't sure whether that was me or not.
No, sir, it's not you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. First is just a point of clarification for me. Lisa Academy, not Lisa, Friendship has 2 schools here, and are they under different charters?
We actually have 3 digital learning amendment requests. The
Yeah.
first one I think that we're doing right now is for the Little Rock campus, and it's 1 school, well, 1 campus, 2 schools. We have an elementary and a middle school.
Okay.
And then might I also add that we have the Pine Bluff, which is next, and then the Southeast, which is after that as well. So 3 applications we're applying for.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to have to drop off for a second. I'm at my office and the fire alarm is going off.
We understand. Ms. Pilkington, do you have any questions? You're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just have one question about the peer. You mentioned about peer time within the classroom. What does that look like, and what are students doing in order to kind of engage with their peers when they're doing digital learning?
Well, the peer time is actually a time for them to have uninterrupted conversations, just like they would if they were in the classroom. Like when they have recess time and they get to engage in their own little conversations, it would look like that.
Sorry, thank you.
Ms. Wright McMurray?
So I guess I'm looking and I see that you've detailed out how special education will be offered virtually, and just wanted to see if you can give a little bit of more detail on how that was done over this past year. Was it a successful process, challenges, and how do you see that going forward?
One of the most successful parts. I'm sorry. There's like. One of the most parts had to do services.
Miss Perry, we're unable to understand you.
I'm unable to understand.
Okay. We're going to mute trans line so that maybe that'll stop the feedback.
Okay.
Let's try again.
It help. Is this better?
Yes, go ahead, Miss Perry.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so we were talking about the special education. Okay, yes, one of the things that really worked well had to do with related services. The parents that didn't feel comfortable bringing their children to the school were able to get those services at home in some instances, and then we were able to come up with times after school on Saturdays for them to actually bring the students in for the related services. So that part worked well. The only thing that I would think that we would really want to work on a little bit more so this year would be the socialization aspect that's missing with virtual learning, just like that peer time that's really important for early learners. And that's the thing that we really needed to strive to schedule time for, make plans for, to make sure that it actually occurred, especially with our special education students.
And so the times where you had the pull-out services or additional supports for your special education students, did you feel like that went well, where they were logging on to their appropriate times? Were they being engaged with their teachers? Because I just know that, in some cases with some of our students, logging in appropriately, is not always the best opportunity for them. And so when we have students that have special needs, it may be more of a challenge.
Our principals actually went out when it was time to actually allocate the resources. They would troubleshoot, the principals would, and actually go out and actually help parents be able to log on, get into the system, and work out all of the kinks. So that worked really well. So most of our parents and families were really able to engage well with the technology. And then we had individuals that were there to assist if they were having problems. For those few parents or families that continue to actually have challenges, then we gave them the option of coming in after school, when there were fewer people there on Saturdays for interventions or support.
Dr. Flowers?
Yes, thank you. Similar question, but I want to focus on the ESL population. Can you talk a bit about maybe some of the successes or maybe some concerns or struggles that you had working with that population of students?
We didn't really have any more struggles with those students. We have a really solid ESL teacher, and then our assistant principal at the Little Rock campus is also very cognizant of working with those families. And so everything that we did was actually in English and in Spanish. We continue to communicate well with those families. We didn't really have any struggles with our ESL population.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Henry.
Mm-hmm.
Baldwin?
On the application for the waivers, the 6-hour instructional day and then the clock hour waiver, you talk about students proceeding at their own pace of work. And I was wondering if you could help us understand how that would work in practice, and then how you would identify students that may be falling behind and what you would do to help them.
Okay. Well, the teachers are constantly doing assessments and so that helps us, and they do exit tickets at the end of every lesson. So that helps us know who's getting it, who's not getting it, and who may be falling behind. So we're big on data, and we're big on reviewing data consistently, so that before too much time has actually elapsed, we're able to figure out what the issue is, then implement some interventions, and hopefully get the student back on track. So our assessment regimen actually helps with the identification of who might be falling behind.
And then the two applications, you have Southeast Pine Bluff and the Academy in Little Rock. Are the requests the same for each location?
They are pretty much the same, although in Southeast, it's a high school, and we use a different curriculum there. It's called Edmentum. But for the most, but all the campuses utilize Google Classroom as the primary method of instruction for virtual learners.
Also to say something, this is Tran here. At our Southeast campus, this is the first year that we've had for that school alone, 100% graduation rate. And with our special education students, I think we had about 10 of those students that actually graduated with a diploma, which down in Pine Bluff, it's unheard of, because a lot of time they graduate with a certificate. And so we've had 10 of our special education students graduate with a diploma, but they also had a scholarship, if I'm not mistaken, to UAPB as well. But to refer to our program, for those students that are lagging behind, we actually do ask parents to come in during after school or during the weekend to actually provide them with extra support, just to ensure that that they're on task as well. So those are the services that we provide at the school.
So, Ms. Perry, I think you've addressed very well how you are supporting students if they fall behind or have learning loss, but talk to us a little bit how you're keeping them on grade level, especially in K2. So what are you doing to ensure students stay on grade level?
Mm-hmm. Again, it has to do with the exit tickets daily. We have, for our curriculum, we use a lot of Great Minds curriculums. We've got Witten Wisdom, Eureka Math, and there are assessments that are in there that we utilize on a weekly basis. In addition, we use the NWEA MAP assessments to actually help us make sure that our students are performing as they need to, and to help us identify when they're not. But to help them actually stay on target, we routinely have interventions that are scheduled in throughout the course of the day. There's an intervention block in every daily schedule at every school. And then again, after school, we have a thriving after school program, and we put additional interventions or academic interventions in the after school activities as well. And then when as needed, we have, well, really not as needed, almost every Saturday, we actually had Saturday school.
In your application, you noted that you had a waiver from GT. Could you speak to how you are supporting students that need acceleration, need enhanced learning opportunities? How are you providing that in lieu of your current waiver?
Mm-hmm. We are basically providing enrichment and opportunities for them to actually thrive in other areas. We have clubs, activities. Then there's also academic enrichment activities that we have at every school.
Any additional questions or concerns? Ms. Hyatt?
On the Friendship Aspire Academy Little Rock application, there's not really a legal issue, but just because of the state board's questions around class size for elementary, they are requesting a waiver of class size for their elementary students. So I would, just for the benefit of the state board, like to know your anticipated class sizes so that we can provide that information to them.
Well, we anticipate that we'll be able to fall within the actual class size requirements, but we're just thinking if by chance there happens to be, because we're open enrollment, if we get another student like 1 or 2 extra students that actually enroll and there's a need and they've identified that they want to be virtual, we just want to be able to have that time to deliver those services until we can get additional staff on board.
Okay. I'm not sure if you would like to discuss these applications together, but I do have a question on one of the waivers for the high school application, if you'd like me to address it now.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. This is the same issue as Graduate Arkansas. In high school, class size does not apply to digital courses, but they have asked for the class size waiver. They don't need that for the digital courses for high school. So if you could just confirm that for me, Ms. Henry.
I confirm.
Okay. And before I sit down, I would just like to remind the panel that Southeast Arkansas Prep was the school that Friendship took over at a time when we thought that the students would all be displaced and would not be able to graduate. No one was on track to graduate, and there were lots of issues. So to hear that they have a 100% graduation rate this year with most of their kids going to college is a huge deal to me, because I remember walking through that transfer process and thinking that all of those kids that were there were gonna lose their place at school. So that's huge, and I just wanted to make sure to point that out to you guys.
Ms. Henry, how many students are you expecting to participate in the digital learning program in the Little Rock program?
In the Little Rock program, probably not more than 25 or so on the elementary and probably about 15 at the middle school.
And so in your plan, if the teachers are teaching on-site and virtual at the same time, and in your plan is if that class size or teaching load probably gets over the recommended numbers, that's when you would start looking at additional planning time or additional support as you've documented in your plan. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Any additional questions?
Yes, just a comment or two. I want to thank Ms. Hyatt for reminding us of Aspire taking over Friendship, because I remember that was a critical time when I think several of us was concerned about the number of students that were being displaced. So we appreciate Aspire stepping in. Another thing I think would be helpful along with this, and I don't want to add more work, but when we get the digital programs coming before us, if we can still get the same information like when they had the application of kind of the overview of the school, the letter grade, would be just helpful to, it's just a lot of stuff to remember, from the past, and having that additional information that DESE provides during the normal application would be helpful. So that's all my comment. The other questions were answered my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. So hearing no further questions, I'll accept a motion. And this charter expires in 2023, so.
This is for the Little Rock.
Yes, Little Rock, Friendship Aspire Academy, Little Rock.
I'll make that motion to approve the application.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Baldwin, a second by Ms. Wright McMurray to approve Friendship Aspire Academy, Little Rock digital application until the charter expires. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Tim, if you'll introduce Southeast Pine Bluff.
Yes, Tim Johnston, DESE Charter Unit. The next location is the Southeast Pine Bluff. They've submitted Aspire or I'm sorry, I apologize, Friendship Aspire has submitted an amendment to the digital learning plan for grades 10 through 12. The school will offer asynchronous and synchronous instruction virtually through the use of approved digital provider and licensed district staff, and the application has been approved by the DESE team, and this charter also expires June of 2023.
Dr. Williams, any additional questions?
I would just like for, hopefully the name on the screen, Ms. Henry, is that correct? Okay. If she could just kind of give us a brief overview. I think the same questions that we asked previously would probably suffice here, but I just don't know that I'm making an assumption and that may not be the right thing to do. So if you could kind of just give us a brief overview of this request in this school.
Certainly. Friendship Aspire Southeast Pine Bluff is a high school that is, this year it was grades 10 through 12. Next year it will be grades 11 and 12. And the following year it will just be grade 12 until after that we go back down to 6th grade and then build our way back up to 6 to 12. So that's just a little bit of background on the school and how the rollout plan is for Southeast. Again, as Ms. Hyatt mentioned, this is the school that was another, it was another Southeast Prep charter school that was lost, and Friendship actually started another school to help with the displaced students. This year we had graduation, and I've got the principal that's actually on the call as well, Miss Anitra Rogers. I think we had like 25 students to actually graduate this year. All of the students will be going to college with the exception of 2. I think one is going in the military and one is going to cosmetology school, I do believe. So we're doing really well there. We're asking for the digital learning waiver to accommodate those students and families that do not yet feel comfortable coming back onto the campus. This will allow them the ability to actually receive their education from home.
Thank you. No additional questions.
Okay.
Ms. Pilkington?
Yeah, that's a fantastic graduation rate. I was just curious, did you offer the asynchronous learning last year, and was that overall successful?
We did, and it was a lot of work on our small team that's actually there at Pine Bluff Southeast. But they were able to actually get it done. The teachers there were already somewhat familiar with digital learning anyway. So it wasn't a heavy lift, but it was a lot. Well, it was a heavy lift, but it wasn't new.
Thank you.
Ms. Wright McMurray?
I don't have any questions. I just appreciate you sharing your numbers on your post-secondary placement. That is something that should be lifted up and recognized, and definitely during a COVID year that is difficult for many to obtain. So good job.
Dr. Flowers?
No additional questions. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Mr. Baldwin?
No questions. Good job.
Ms. Hyatt, do you have any additional concerns? All right. Then, grab my sheet of paper. And I'll accept a motion.
Move approved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Ms. Wright McMurray to approve the Friendship Aspire Academy Southeast Pine Bluff until the charter expires, and a second by Dr. Flowers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. I think we'd like to take a break. So if we'll take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll move into our last 3 considerations, and all of those will be full hearings, correct? Nodding from the crowd. Okay. All right, 10 minutes, please. Mr. Johnston, ready for the next item? And Ms. Hite, if you will also come and give us our guidance for a hearing.
The remaining agenda items will all be formal, non-expedited amendments to charters. The process for doing that will be, first you'll want to swear anybody who's going to be giving testimony other than the attorneys. Then they will have 20 minutes to give their presentation to the panel. No one has signed up in opposition to any of the amendment requests, so you won't have to allow time for that. You may allow an additional 5 minutes if you wish at the end of the 20 minutes. Of course, you can extend time as the chair if you need to. Following that, we will address any remaining legal concerns, and the panel can ask questions of the applicant. At the time that it's time to vote, if there are any questions on motions or anything like that, I'll come up and help you through that process.
Thank you. Mr. Johnston?
Tim Johnston, DESE Charter Unit. Friendship Aspire Academy Pine Bluff is requesting an amendment to add an additional campus, increase enrollment cap, and add additional waivers. The charter was originally granted in 2017 and serves students in grades K through 3 with an enrollment cap of 240. The charter has been approved to expand to grade 6 and increase the enrollment cap to 240 by 2023-2024. Their charter does expire in June of 23. And we have Joe Harris, CEO of Friendship Education Foundation, Fong Tran, Superintendent, and Virginia Henry, Deputy Superintendent, all online via Zoom.
Thank you. If all members of Friendship Aspire Academy Pine Bluff will raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Mr. Harris and Mr. Tran, I didn't hear you.
Sorry, I do. We were on mute.
Thank you. All right. We'll start with your 20-minute presentation, and you may begin at any time.
Yes, Virginia Henry, Deputy Superintendent for Friendship Aspire, Arkansas. We also have a representative from the Pine Bluff Mayor's Office and a parent, Ms. Carla Martin, that will also be testifying on our behalf this morning. Okay.
Would you like to start with the Mayor's Office, Ms. Henry?
If they're okay, we'd actually like to end with the Mayor's Office and with the parent. Okay. All righty. So a little bit about Friendship. The mission of all our schools is to provide a world-class education that motivates students to achieve high academic standards, enjoy learning, and develop as ethical, literate, well-rounded, and self-sufficient citizens. Friendship originated in Washington, D.C. from a social service agency that got into charter schools because that was a need that was identified by the clients that we actually served. We came to Arkansas in 2018 and came before the Charter Authorizing panel and asked for a school in Pine Bluff and a school in Little Rock. We were granted those schools, and we started the Pine Bluff school. We came in 2017, and in 2018 we actually started the Pine Bluff campus, the Hazel Street location. There is a need for early education in Pine Bluff. Currently at our Hazel Street location, our enrollment for this coming up year 21-22 is 400 students. So we have 400 students enrolled, and we have a cap right now of 400 students. We have the current families on the wait list are actually 72, and it's growing daily. We pulled a little data on the reading level from My School Info from Pine Bluff, from area schools compared to the district rates, and it definitely shows a need for some early education interventions. Third grade literacy in Pine Bluff School District was 15.65%, Dalloway 11.11%, Watson Chapel 11.76%, compared to the Arkansas third grade literacy rate of 41.54%. This request also represents a follow-through on our part, on our commitment to operate a pre-K program in the Pine Bluff area.
Ms. Perry, is there any way do we need to pull up a presentation online, or do you all have it?
It's up.
No, it's not, Ms. Perry.
Ms. Henry, you'll need to share your screen.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Host disabled participant screen share. So can someone give me access to share it?
Working on that now.
Thank you. I do apologize.
Okay, try now, Miss Henry.
Okay.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay. So our proposal actually meets the needs that we've identified by allowing an opportunity for those parents on the wait list to actually be serviced. And then it also meets the early reading intervention needs for K3, because we focus on the fundamentals of reading. And then in pre-K4, we want to follow the Reggio Emilia philosophy, which is a self-guided approach to pre-K. Oops. Hold on. So I'm trying to put this somewhere. Okay. So the amendment that we're actually requesting, we are seeking to add a campus at 700 Main Street, which is in downtown Pine Bluff, and we're also seeking to increase our enrollment cap from 480, which is what it currently is, to 880. So what we're wanting to do is increase the enrollment cap by 50 new seats this year, which would take us from a 400 enrollment cap to 450 at the Hazel Street location, and then have full enrollment at Hazel Street of 580 by the 22-23 school year, which would be an additional 100 seats at the Hazel Street location. So that would take us from the existing cap to 580. So we want to increase by 100 at the Hazel Street location. Then the other 300 we want to actually have at the new 700 Main Street location. And if you'll notice, under the slow growth rollout plan in our original amendment request, I think it said that we were going to do pre-K and kindergarten, or for your purposes, mostly kindergarten, the 21-22 school year, but we want to do it next year for the 22-23 school year. And then follow by adding a grade each year until we're eventually PK3. Then some data that we have that shows our proficiency scores on the NWEA map. These are for K2, these are end of year results, but for third grade, they're actually MOY results. We anticipate that the end of year results would have been higher, but we didn't want to, well, we were concerned about test fatigue for our students, and we're anxiously awaiting the ACT Aspire scores for third grade. And as far as growth is concerned, 100% of our students actually achieved growth, but we focus at Friendship on proficiency. So we're giving you the actual proficiency numbers. This is a rendering of the new structure at South Main Street and West 7th Avenue, or 700 Main Street. And this is the floor plan. Mayoral support. If we can have the representative from the mayor's office to speak now.
Yes, hello. My name is William Phelps. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I am representing the mayor's office here in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Mayor Washington, our staff members, and I have visited the friendship sites here in Pine Bluff on numerous occasions. And what we have observed during those site visits is that these students are very positive. They're very well behaved. They're very sociable. So we do think that there is a positive environment that's being created at both locations here. We've also heard reports from parents who say that they are pleased with where their students' performances are. They're pleased with where the behavioral type of lessons and standards that they have at Friendship, where that's at right now. And that's also just evident in the amount of people who have just been trying to get their students onto their campuses. I believe they have very extensive wait lists. And you know, the bottom line here is Pine Bluff, we need quality schools in order to succeed as a community. That's just essential to growing our economy, expanding our job market, and just bringing in more residents, and also just giving our students the skills that they'll need to have a good livelihood and succeed wherever they go throughout our lifetimes. And we believe that Friendship Aspire is uniquely qualified to be that quality school. And they've also just proven that they do have the capacity to bring in those services. So that's why we're here in support of Friendship Aspire today.
Thank you, Mr. Fowles. Again, as I stated earlier, there are 72 families on the wait list at the current Hazel Street location. And now we'd like to hear from Ms. Carla Martin with parent testimony.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Dr. Carla Martin, and my husband and I are the parent of a 7-year-old who attends the Friendship Aspire Pine Bluff campus. We became a part of the Friendship family when our daughter enrolled in kindergarten. When she enrolled in kindergarten, we had a wonderful teacher. She has recently completed her first grade year virtually, and we too had another wonderful experience. As a parent, I am always excited about opportunities for my child to have an engaging, a demanding, and a thought-provoking environment for her to learn in. When Avery was in kindergarten, she tested on the 2nd grade level, and this year she has tested above her grade level as well. So we know that in addition to what we are doing as parents, the things that are happening on that campus are amazing. And we believe more students should have an opportunity to engage in that type of learning. So I am appreciative of the opportunity to speak on behalf of parents at Friendship Aspire Pine Bluff to let you know that it is important to us in this community that our students have an opportunity to engage in learning, not just on academic subjects, but also about character development, about the expectation of being a college attendee and a college graduate, understanding business components, understanding and being exposed to art and music, and overall being a very well-rounded student. This is an opportunity for more young people in our community to engage in that type of learning. So I ask on behalf of the parents of Friendship Aspire that you support this particular request.
Thank you so much, Dr. Martin. So that concludes our presentation, and essentially, again, we're asking for approval of the amendment request to get a new small campus. Notice I said the word small, in downtown, or to add that location in downtown Pine Bluff, and also to increase our enrollment cap. Any questions?
Perry, could you go back to your first slide? Next, we're looking for the data slides.
Okay. This one?
No, back up, please. let's start right there. So for 2022, I'm just a little confused when I'm looking at our data sheet that was attached to the to the panel agenda. For 21-22, it's showing you to be a K-3 school with 320 students enrolled. And I'm showing data that you already have K-3 enrolled. So I'm a little confused. Either we've got incorrect data or
Well, we are a K-3 school for 2021 for this past year. Next year will be next year in 21-22, we have 400 students enrolled.
okay, that's
And
what.
will be a K4.
Yes.
All right, then we'll need to, Mary Claire, will you look at that? Because that's what I'm showing on our enrollment data sheet, is that they're a year ahead.
Miss Kaufman, you might be confused with our, and again, I might be totally wrong here. Our Little Rock campus is our K2, so next year it will be a K3. So that could be the issue at hand. And so our Pine Bluff campus, we started a year earlier than our Little Rock campus. And so our Little Rock campus next year will be a K3. This year was a K2. Pine Bluff campus was a K3 this year. Next year will be a K4.
That may be the confusion. We may have the data from the wrong sheet.
Yeah, we will double check that and get, if you'll give us a couple of minutes, we can look.
Okay. So, Ms. Perry, just while they're looking the data up and before we start our questions, at Hazel Street, what's the total number of students that you're approved for on site in your building?
This year it is for on site in the building, I think it's 480.
So comfortably 480 students could be in that building. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're wanting to increase that number at the Hazel Street?
We do.
By 100, is that correct?
Yes.
So you do have room for 580 students, or do you think some of those students will be?
We have plans for additional construction. And some of the students will likely be virtual.
To the slide before.
Ms. Kaufman, just to reiterate as well, so the campus is 480 and it does hold 480 comfortably. We are looking at, because we do have on the Hazel Street campus a big plot of land, so we're looking at adding an additional building there, so to house the 580 students. But we wanted to go ahead and ask to increase the cap for this coming school year, because our cap for this coming school year is 400 and we wanted 450 to go ahead to ensure that we can service all those parents on the waiting list as well.
Ms. Hyatt?
I think the chart on the document that you guys were given is just off by 1 year. So the information is correct, it's just off by a year. So they were a K1 in the 18-19 school year. They were a K2 in 19-20. In 2021, K3. In 21-22, K4. That was what was approved in their original application in 2017.
Okay. We'll make note of that and make that adjustment in our office to make sure the forms are up to date. And then how many students will comfortably fit at South Main Street? Can Ms. Henry, can you back up one slide as well? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
So Ms. Kaufman, so about 300 students will fit comfortably on that floor plan at the South Main Street, ma'am.
So that brings you to the 880 students.
That is correct.
All right, Ms. Hunt, if you will come up and get us started as we look at waivers?
Most of the waiver issues were addressed in some responses that they submitted that are uploaded to the agenda. But there are 3 remaining issues that we need to work through. So I'll start with the first one. They have requested a waiver of Arkansas Code 618-2004, which is the section of the School Counseling Improvement Act that requires the school counselor to spend 90% of their time engaged in direct services and 10% engaged in non-direct services. This panel has never approved a waiver of that before, neither has the State Board of Education. I thought I would point that out to you since that's a waiver that you guys have had concerns about in the past.
Ms. Hyatt, can I ask a question? I thought that we had a waiver of the school counselor.
So you may have been granted in 2017 a waiver under the Student Services Support Act. That
Yes.
act was repealed in 2019. The department sent out a commissioner's memo to any waiver holder of that, letting them know that that had been repealed and that the School Counseling Improvement Act of 2019 was in its place, that any waivers under the old law were expired and that they would need to come and request waivers under the new law.
Okay.
We do
We can rescind that because we actually hired a school counselor anyway, so we can rescind that waiver request.
Okay. The second piece on their request for teacher licensure rules, they've requested the whole rule. They only need section 7 of those rules, which has to do with hiring licensed teachers and allowing licensed teachers to teach outside of their licensure area rather than the whole rule. So if they could just confirm that for me.
I confirm.
Okay. And the last piece, and this is something that I think has caused confusion for many schools dealing with waivers, is we used to have a rule that dealt with personnel policies, salary schedules, and things that had to go onto the website. That rule was changed drastically in 2020 and now just includes things that must go on the website. So they asked for a waiver under the old rule. Under the new rule, which is the DZ rules governing documents to be posted on school district websites, they will need section 5.01.4 and section 6 to cover their waivers that they wanted under the old rules.
So what exactly are we waiving on the website?
It would be to post their salary schedules and to post their personnel policies for classified and for licensed employees. That's the only three things.
Okay, so we would like to request the DESI rules governing section 5.0104 and section 6.
That's all that I have.
Ms. Hott, so in a typical application, when a school is proposing to increase a cap or add a campus, they're usually reaching out to the neighboring districts to let them know about that. Is that expected during the amendment process as well?
So anytime a school wants to amend their charter, they have to give 35 days notice to the superintendent of the local school district. Typically what they do is just CC them on the email that they send to us that has the amendment request in it.
So I didn't see documentation of that. Did you?
So let me get with Tim because that information comes in directly into the charter office.
Ms. Henry, can you speak to that?
I can, and that was not done.
So, my apologies for that. That's something that won't happen again. Because the superintendent of the local school district has not been notified, the panel cannot vote on the matter today. So you can continue to ask questions if you would like, but we'll have to give notice to Dr. Warren at Pine Bluff 35 days before it can be voted on by the panel.
Okay. But we still can vote on the digital learning application?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that. Mr. Johnson?
Yes. Ms. Henry, if we could get you to stop sharing your screen, that way we can see everyone again. Thank you.
Well, I say digital learning application, and then when I look again, I don't see one.
There should be one.
The digital learning applications for these schools you heard before the break.
Does
I
that
don't think we voted on the one for Pine Bluff, though.
Then I don't think we have that one on the agenda. We only had 2 digital learning applications for Friendship on the agenda, the 2 that you heard before, and then this amendment request. So if there's another digital learning application, it will be on your agenda for next month, along with this item.
Okay, so we'll consider the whole item. Do we need to take any action table? Nothing, just that ends that conversation and we'll start at the next meeting?
Sure. And if you have any additional questions for Friendship, you're welcome to go ahead and ask those now. You just can't take action. And then we will make sure to get verification that Dr. Warren's been notified before the next panel meeting. And that will be on your July agenda.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Friendship. See you in July.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Johnston, we'll hear the next request.
Tim Johnston, DESE Charter Unit. The Excel Center has submitted an amendment request to add additional campuses. The school is the only adult learning center in the state that allows students aged 19 and older to earn a high school diploma. The charter was originally authorized in 2016 and has an enrollment cap of 350, and their charter will expire in June of 2022. Today in person we have Brian Marsh, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Arkansas, Marcus Jewett, Vice President of Mission Services, Goodwill Industries of Arkansas, and Greg Wertenberger, who is the School Director of the Excel Center of Goodwill Industries of Arkansas.
Thank you. If you will raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 20 minutes. Please state your name for the record.
Brian Marsh, President and CEO, Goodwill Industries of Arkansas. First of all, thank you for having us today to discuss the Excel Center and to go through a brief history of the Excel Center. In 2015, we worked with legislature to change the law to allow for adults to earn their high school diploma. In 2017, we opened our high school for 125 students, and we expanded that charter to 350 in 2019. And in 2019, we started construction to expand the footprint of the Excel Center. And when COVID came in, we were in the middle of the construction project, And in 2020, we moved into the new space. There are over 320,000 Arkansans who are over the age of 19 who do not have a high school diploma. We worked diligently with legislators to determine a methodology for us to launch the Excel Center. With that, we've operated that school again since 2017. We've had very good success, and with the this grand number of 320,000, we see the need, as we did when we went for the change in legislation to expand to more schools across the state, and this falls in line with that plan.
So just to kind of give you a little bit of overview of the model that the Excel Center follows to help adults who are coming back to pursue completing their high school diploma. We are in the business of helping students remove barriers that were in place that maybe prevented them from completing their diploma successfully in the traditional time that they would have attempted to do that. So the Excel Center is equipped to offer adult learners the option to attend classes on a flexible schedule. So we have some students who attend full-time classes Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4 during a traditional master schedule time. But then we also offer students the ability to come part-time. For the fall, we're planning to offer an extended evening option for some of our students who are juggling their class schedule around a work, because we have about 70% of our students who are working at least part-time while they're coming into to class. We also offer free on-site childcare because we have a large number of our students who are parents themselves who are working, have preschool age children that can come into our school and have free on-site childcare for those kids while they're learning in the building. We also offer transportation assistance. The Little Rock bus drops right off in front of our school, so Goodwill helps to provide those bus passes for students who do not have their own transportation to and from the school. That just is one way that we help to address that barrier of being able to consistently come into the building for class. Probably one of the most significant parts of our model is that every student is assigned an individual life coach. From the moment they come into enrollment, those life coaches begin addressing with students what some of the barriers were that presented for them that caused them to drop out of high school previously. So we begin those conversations finding out what the needs are, how we can best meet those needs, and then also making a plan for what comes next. Because we know that adults do not have a lot of time. They are juggling a lot of responsibilities. They want to complete that diploma as quickly as possible. So our life coaches work with students to request transcripts from existing previous high school credits that they may have obtained, so that we can build and add on to that to help them finish out the remaining credits that they need to complete their high school diploma. But then we're also talking to them about what their goals are after graduation. Because of our partnership with the Academy at Goodwill, we are paving a way for students to, at no cost to them, pursue industry recognized credentials simultaneously while they are obtaining their high school diploma. We are also equipping students to prepare for higher education if that is the path that they are choosing to do, and so far about 85% of our graduates have gone on to pursue higher education after graduating from the Excel Center. We do hire qualified and expert instructors for all of our classes that are taught on site by qualified staff. We currently have 7 instructors at the Excel Center. 2 of those are special ed instructors, special ed certified. We have one of our teachers who is currently in the MAT program at UCA, who is at the ESOL Institute at Henderson State University, pursuing ESL endorsement as part of his license as well. And then we do offer special education and English language learner support on site with our licensed staff. About 90% of our students who come into us, when they take their initial diagnostic assessments in math and reading, They show us that they are performing well below high school level and needing some extra support that we provide through our special education teachers, through a math and an English lab course that offers that remediation that they may need to be accessible and get them ready for grade level content in our rest of our curriculum. I'm going to throw it back over to Marcus Jewett to let him talk about some of the outcomes that we have seen so far in the school's existence for our graduates.
Yes, I'm Marcus Jewett. I'm the Vice President of Mission Services for Goodwill Industries of Arkansas. And yeah, I get to talk about all the great work that Greg and his team do with what he outlined in terms of our outcomes. And so upon enrollment at the Excel Center, we ask our students to complete a self-disclosed survey, kind of telling us where they are, what their home situation looks like, what their income looks like, employment status. And then we follow them at periods throughout their enrollment with us, and then also every 6 months post-graduation, because we want to be able to tell a story on the impact that the Excel Center has had on them and their families. And so as you see in front of you, what we do know is that for whatever reason, the first time around, school did not end favorably for them. And you can imagine many of the barriers presented and how that ended that way. But we are happy to report that of our 58 graduates to date, 31% of those are first generation high school graduates. And we think about the statistics that say, children of a high school graduate are 50% more likely to graduate high school themselves. We really look at that, breaking that generational cycle of poverty and lack of educational attainment. As Greg mentioned earlier, we know that upwards of 90% of our students test in needing some level of remediation, some way more than others. And what's beautiful to see is that upon graduation, 6 months post-graduation, 84% of them are enrolled in 2-year or 4-year schools or a technical school. We have students come in all the time that were previous graduates that come in to show us their transcripts or to show us the dean's list that they made, and that's really powerful to see. At Goodwill, we pride ourselves on also being a workforce solution for the state, and we know that 84% of our students come to us unemployed or underemployed. And so when we think about 6 months postgraduate, we see all of the outcomes that you see listed above. 64% of those are reporting a higher income. More than 50% have access to health insurance provided by their employer. And 2/3 of them are reporting that higher income and an average of about $14.62 per hour. So we're really excited about that growth, and we will continue to see that wage increase as they are further and further post-graduation, as they bolster their resume and further their employment at their current employers or take advancement opportunities. The last box I would highlight there, and I think this is underreported from our students, quite honestly, is more than 70% of them upon entry are receiving some form of public assistance. And that same number, the same percentage of students have school-age children in their home. We also know that roughly half of our students are single parents. And so being able to provide those systems of support that Greg highlighted help us achieve those results that we see 6 months post-grad with our graduates, where they're saying 97% are reporting has provided better career opportunities for them. It's opened some doors that were not available to them. And 83% report a bigger impact on education in their household. We hear it a lot, and it's hard to measure this metric, but we hear it a lot. I can now help my 4th grader with their homework. I can now tell my students that graduating high school is important. I couldn't do that if I didn't have my diploma myself. And so those metrics that, the tangible ones that we can report on, the increase in wages, increase in educational attainment, and that is just as impactful to us and is why we do what we do. We thought we would take this time to also share the progress on our metrics that we are accountable for. And so one of those metrics is our graduates earning an industry credential. The goal that we've set for ourselves and agreed upon is 60%. What you see, the decline in 2021, unfortunately, is we've heard it a couple times today, just the impact of COVID and the accessibility to those trainings in person. So as things start to open back up, Greg talked about our relationship with the Goodwill Academy, which is our licensed trade school. It's beautiful to have all of that under one roof at Goodwill, where we can wrap our arms around those students through their high school progression and then walk them over to their welding class and make sure that they're successful there. We talk about through our academy, we're really focused on 6 major industries. And so we're excited to see, these numbers continue to tick upward with more rigorous, meaningful credentials, so that when they leave the Excel Center, it's a diploma and something else that's going to help them engage the workforce at a higher level. Students meeting academic growth goals. So this is measured by our iReady assessment. And we want to have 60% of our students exhibiting a 10-point growth in both math and reading. And so again, you see that uptick in 2021. That is as more students are coming back into the building and we're able to capture that assessment at enrollment and then near graduation. So again, by having some more students in the building, we were intentional around having students come back because it has been in kind of a virtual nature. But when it was safe to do so, we brought them back because we know for all the reasons we've highlighted, they need that in-person wraparound support that we're able to provide with our team. The next to last goal that I would like to highlight, I know we touched on this, the goal here is 50% of our graduates who are either employed or continuing education, and we're knocking at about 84%. We're really happy with that number. We have students coming back to us now because we've been in existence long enough to have their associate's degrees and they're pursuing their bachelor's. And so just hearing those stories and seeing that impact is really awesome to see. So this last metric that I would highlight is, again, for our accountability goal is 15% is the number of average students to graduation that we would like to see. And so our average seat for this year, our average student number was 136. And so with all of the barriers that COVID presented in decreasing that number below what we would say 20% is where our internal target, we've had the online nature of where we've been. We've got a high level of students, 90% or so, that test in needing remediation that's hard to do online. We have parents who are juggling childcare for their own children, juggling being a teacher in a homeschool in a virtual nature that they've had to kind of adapt to, plus their own remote learning and access to technology. All of these kind of barriers kind of snowballed for the population that we serve. But with that, though, by moving to an online platform, it also opened up accessibility to students to take our courses online. But we do know, again, to highlight the obvious, that those supports that they need we're not able to provide as well in a virtual nature. And so we saw that dip, unfortunately, where students enrolled and they just weren't able to progress because we weren't able to wrap around and provide that in-person instruction that is so key to the model at the Excel Center. I will toss it back over to our President and CEO, Brian Marsh, to talk about Goodwill's commitment to this mission.
So when we started this endeavor, legislators asked, why Goodwill? Why would we want to do this? Our mission statement, as you see, is changing lives through education, training, and employment. The foundation is education. Education is critical. We have a great need in the state for educating adults. As we move forward from the pandemic, it's going to be more and more apparent that those who do not have a high school diploma, or those who do not have those additional trainings and certifications, are going to be left behind in our economy. And so we have a great fear in that. Goodwill, we are part of a federated model across North America. There are 155 Goodwills organizations across North America. We are unique, and we are Goodwill of Arkansas. We're Goodwill of all of Arkansas. So our ability to address this in supporting locations across the state is critical. Goodwill in Ohio, there are more than 15 Goodwill organizations. So it's very difficult for them to address an Ohio statewide need without getting 15 organizations together to do that. We have we have 44 locations in the state. We operated through the pandemic. The governor and his staff determined that we were an essential business, and part of that was our Excel Center and the fact that we were leading education. The other was the tremendous number of donations that are given across the state and what would happen with those if we're not open. That is our lifeblood. That is what has sustained us through this. But as I mentioned, our board is very supportive of this. They have the vision also, and our foundation is built on changing lives through education and training and employment. So that's why we are interested in this. That's why we are focused on this, and we have a board that supports it. So take that over to Marcus.
Marcus Jewett again, Vice President of Mission Services at Goodwill, Arkansas. To give a little additional context to the Excel Center model, while there is one existing school in Arkansas, there are 31 Excel Centers across the country, operated by 7 different Goodwills, as Brian talked about. just would like to highlight the fact that we are, like as one of 7, we are the only Excel Center network that has yet to expand and that does not receive any state funding. And so we continue to work tirelessly to find sustainable ways to support this, because we know that there are pockets of the state that need our services, as you'll see in the next slide. And so with that, we feel that through this Excel Center and paired with an academy and our other mission services, that this is the way that we can have the most meaningful impact on the state of Arkansas, and that's why we're here before you today to request expansion. I would, as you've got in your packet in front of you, the 2 proposed locations would be in the Springdale area and the Jonesboro area, as highlighted here by some data around the number of adults ages 25 and over who lack a high school diploma based off census data. And so you've got roughly 46,000 adults in the Springdale area. And what we did there was we anticipate serving, pulling from Benton, Carroll, Madison, and Washington counties to support. I think students would travel to that location to access our services. In that Jonesboro area, we anticipated pulling from Craighead, Greene, Jackson, Lawrence, Poinsett, and Randolph counties. So that's where those numbers are generated from. And so those numbers are definitely in alignment across the country to support an Excel Center of 350 students. And so while this expansion is obviously contingent upon funding, we want to make sure that we are positioned and authorized by the grace of you guys to be able to move forward full steam ahead to serve these populations in these pockets of the state. And so having that approval from you allows us to react swiftly, to hire teachers, kind of build the infrastructure. We've got the infrastructure, but to build them up, train them, and have them ready to support their communities. We feel confident that the staffing model that we have in the Little Rock Excel Center would just be replicated in the 2 additional locations. And then we would build out a central office support team, as you've seen some of that in front of you, where we would hire state registrar reporting functions, we would look at student support services, we would hire curriculum and instruction folks, and then finance and HR support to support the enhanced number of staff and students. And then a superintendent level position to help oversee all 3 of the campuses. From a facilities perspective, Brian touched on, Goodwill operates multiple facilities, and so we have the infrastructure there to add 2 additional facilities to that. We are currently looking at buildings in the 30 to 35,000 square foot range so that we can serve adult students and build. It'd be very similar to the campus in Little Rock if you've ever had the opportunity to view that. So with that, that's kind of our pitch. I will turn it back over to Brian to close us out.
So, as you've heard, we have a plan. We have a definite need. We have a methodology that works in addressing the needs of these adults that seek a high school diploma. We've been working, as Marcus said, with legislators and with the governor's staff on how to fund this, and there is opportunity on the very near horizon, and we're waiting for that. That is happening right now, actually, during peer review. We understand the methodology. We understand how government funding works. We understand that this state funding would provide 2 years of funding, and then we go back again and we continue down that path. We are prepared to continue that. We have legislative support. We have had a very active legislative session during the legislative session this year, and we have a number of legislators that feel very strongly that this is an important thing to happen in the state. So we're here to request to expand our charter so that we can look to move quickly, as Marcus said, in building our teaching staff if and when that funding comes through, and it is predicated on that. And if it does not come from the state, we are also working with other entities in the state of Arkansas and outside the state of Arkansas that have funded education in the past, and working to secure that funding. So at that, we will answer any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Marcus, could I get you to clarify something I think I heard you say?
Absolutely.
So did you say there are other Excel centers in the state?
No, not in the state. There are 31 other Excel centers. There are 30 other Excel centers in the country, 31
Gotcha.
total.
Okay. I didn't catch the whole sentence there, and I was like, what? All right, that's very helpful. All right, Ms. Hyatt, no waivers discussion? Oh, I've got waiver discussions. All right, I'd like for Ms. Hyatt, if you'll come up and address, so we're adding new campuses, increasing enrollment, which makes sense, 350 at each campus, I'm assuming. But then, as I read on into the packet, there was an additional legal page somewhere in my packet.
And there was a waiver issue. Sorry, we're frazzled back there trying to make sure everyone's given proper notices. So there is a waiver issue to be addressed, if you
Address it.
Okay. So after the amendment request was submitted, they did submit a request via email to waive Tier 1 and Tier 2 training for their financial staff. So that training is required for all school district bookkeepers and people that are handling money in school districts. While I definitely understand, since they don't receive state money, things are handled a little bit differently for their school, but I did have the opportunity to visit with our CFO, and unfortunately he couldn't be here today because he had a legislative commitment, but he did ask me to relay his concerns to the panel that he's not in favor of granting a waiver for Tier 1 and Tier 2 training for any school. It's never been granted before, and although they don't receive state funding, you do go over practices and entering information into AppScan and things like that, which they will use. And so he is opposed to granting a waiver of those two sections. And thank you for reminding me, Ms. Coffin.
That's what I'm here for. Also on standard 41 on teacher licensure, I would have expected we had educator licensure waiver already.
Give me 1 second to get my copy.
Okay.
So they did have a waiver, but it wasn't fully effectuated. So as you've seen kind of over the past couple of years, we've been doing a lot of work to make sure that waivers that were granted prior to 2018 are being kind of cleaned up to make sure they have all of the pieces. Because prior to 2018, we had lots of waivers that were granted where they were missing a rule or a standard or a law. So it's just in an effort to make sure they have fully effectuated waivers. They do have a waiver of teacher licensure, and it wasn't causing any kind of flagging, but for consistency's sake, we've added the necessary pieces.
Okay. And so the waiver, the charter is up for renewal in 2022, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at that time, whatever is approved today comes back for start all over again in 2022, is that correct?
That's correct, because they're asking for licenses under their existing charter rather than new charters. So all of the campuses will independently operate like schools in a district with their own LEA numbers. And I'm not even sure if they receive an LEA number. And so they will operate independently under the district of Excel. And so the entire charter will be up for renewal in 2022. So you will hear them, in December. So anything that you do today, you will revisit in a couple of months in the context of their entire application.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Dr. Williams, any questions?
Yes, a couple. One, how will you address the transportation issue in your new locations? In Little Rock, you have the transit system, but in Springdale, Fort Smith, and I'm not know as much about Jonesboro, getting students to the site.
In Jonesboro, I can speak to that one specifically. We've actually looked at a building there that is on the bus route and actually has stops within a half a block or a block in one or the other direction. So we feel comfortable on that. Operating a number of locations in Northwest Arkansas, we do understand the challenge of transportation in Northwest Arkansas. We have yet to locate the building. We have opportunities that we're looking at. That is a challenge, and we are looking at how do we do that. That will have to be a dynamic challenge and a dynamic solution. So I know that in our workforce solution there, we have worked with employers that have a bus that runs and does pick up employees and bring them to the plant from certain locations in the community. We would look to mimic or mirror that for the Excel Center.
Thank you.
Ms. Pilkington?
Hi, yeah, I have two questions. My first is, you mentioned the academy that the current center has where students can, engage in getting another degree or a certification. Will the new centers also have that academy? Is that part of the model?
Yes, that is part of the expansion plan that we have internally at Goodwill of Arkansas.
Okay,
Great
awesome.
question.
My second question is, you mentioned some missed goals and you attributed them mainly to the pandemic. Are you doing anything else to address those missed goals? And will you bring those new kind of techniques to the new centers as well?
Yeah, great question. I think we're pretty confident in the way the model is set in our operations, that given, we've have more students back in the building, we're able to offer in-person instruction, that I think it's going to rectify any of the near misses that we do have. Greg and I were talking yesterday, talking about the iReady assessments, making sure that because we now have students in the building every day, that we're able to capture that where they're at enrollment, as well as at those kind of predetermined points through their progression with us. And so I think we'll have cleaner data around, more complete data. I don't want to say cleaner, more complete data around the iReady assessments and our graduates. As we had that kind of pipeline of students that come through, it takes about 15 months to graduate on average. Mm-hmm. Some shorter, some longer. And when we had all these students apply and they were enrolling online and they were needing the remediation, we've seen kind of this kind of clog in the pipeline of where they're kind of stuck in that remediation level course. And we were able to move them through. So as they transition back into the building, we're able to wrap around them a little tighter and then kind of pick up that 15-month timeline. And so we anticipate that grad number, I think it was at 13%, to be well above the 15% that is the goal. It'll probably be closer to 20 like in previous years.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Right, McMurray?
So first question that I have, and first thank you for your presentation. The first question I have is around your industry recognized certifications. And can you give us a little bit more detail on the raw number of students that are receiving those and what types of certifications are they receiving through your centers?
Yes, let me see. Raw number, great question. Do you have that raw? Okay. I can talk to the types of certifications. Okay. So currently, our academy is offering industrial forklift operation. There's some mental health first aid credentials. There's the career readiness credential that they offer. Some of the ones that I highlighted in the presentation today, the welding has just been launched. Pharmacy technician will be launched as well in the coming months. And so we're increasing the rigor of those certifications into the academy, and Excel Center students will have 100% access to those courses. But the ones that we have currently that are kind of our heavier hitters are those forklift, the CRC, as well as the mental health first aid. And then I will, Greg's working on your number there, I'm sorry.
So in 2018-19, that was 12, we've had 58 graduates so far. So in that first group, I'm sorry, Mr. Sitting too far away. I'm used to my voice, my teacher voice
That's
carrying.
okay.
My apologies. Give me just a second while I math here, real quick to give you that raw number. Live in the land of percentages here. We had 9 in 2020 and 21. We had 9 of our 17 graduates who had 1 or more industry credentials, and then in the 2019-20, we had all 17 of our graduates who received an industry credential. And I'd have to go back and do the math to figure out what exactly that 83% of our quick math quiz, 83% of 24. We're all failing here.
Yeah.
It's a game show, so. Right.
And so right now, the current center, is it serving Pulaski County or?
We draw primarily from Pulaski County, but we have had students travel as far away as North Little Rock Conway to our site there in Southwest Little Rock.
So, this is my last question on this, and I'll let somebody else ask a question. So, when we look at you're in Pulaski County and the number of individuals that are in Pulaski County that do not have a high school diploma, and the current number that you're serving, when we look at like the traditional adult education centers, comparably, how are you guys doing with pulling in folks, getting them to engage at your center and taking your courses to get the GED compared to traditional? And have you guys done any comparison on what outcomes look like for the traditional adult ed centers versus what is happening with your Excel centers to see, is your model having better outcomes than our traditional education centers right now?
Talk about the comparison, would you?
Great question. So with ours ending in the accredited high school diploma, so what we don't have is the comparative data on what the GED outcomes are. It's kind of difficult to maneuver and find some of those metrics. We do know that, and that's part of the reason why we track our graduates as 6 months out and then 6 months continually until they stop returning our calls. Because we want to show that long-term impact. I can also talk about there's been a couple third-party studies done through other Excel centers as this model was based out of the Indianapolis Goodwill. And that's the Goodwill I came from, and actually met this team in 2015 when they were working on this Excel Center launch. Notre Dame is currently doing a study on Excel Center graduates, and they're looking at the wage and income and earning data between the GED and adult high school Excel Center diploma students. And so that data is not available to us today, but they are currently working on that, and they will be engaging with us next year to do an Arkansas specific study. So we're still trying to gather all of that, if that makes sense. And there are 66,914 adults ages 25 and older in Pulaski County and the surrounding kind of bubble that lack their high school diploma, about 11% of the adult population.
And kind of caveat on that, when we began the Excel Center, it is being fully funded by Goodwill. We were very cautious on not overbuilding or going to the 350 number. So we started at 125. We expanded, requested, and received the authority to move to 350, and then the pandemic hit while we were in construction. So we're working towards that, and the charge that has been given Greg and the team is to now let's fully utilize the Little Rock campus and fill that, and we feel very comfortable that when we start in July that number will be above 150 to 200, so we'll double the number of students that we're currently serving. One of the challenges we've had in talking with Marcus, and Marcus doesn't give you enough of his background. Marcus was the director in charge of Excel Center expansion and support across the U.S., and so we brought him here to run our program and help us with expanding here in the state. We didn't want someone to be 350 and we're only taking 125. So now I've got another barrier, and it's I have to wait to get in. I'm ready for school. I need to be in school. So we've been very cautious on controlled growth. We're working now to grow that out to where we get to the point where we've got people who are ready to to join and we can get closer to our capacity number. But it's always been, it's been a very controlled and very measured growth, and that's part of the reason our number is as low as it is. It's also what drives that graduation number. Having 75 to 100 students, especially when they're coming in at 5th to 7th grade level when they're tested, it's a 15 to 18 month journey, and so it takes longer. And they're not cohorts with you are a freshman, you're a sophomore. So it's individualized study plans. So that also leads this to be a very individualized and a very relationship-based education experience, and it's critical. So that's part of it also.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Flowers?
Yes. In your presentation, you talked about one of your priorities being decreasing underemployment. And so this question relates to your certification offerings. I know we're talking about Central Arkansas, so with your expansion in Northwest and Northeast, do you think that the offerings will meet the industry needs as well in those areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the beauties of the Excel Center model is that it is built to be adaptable to the community that you serve. And so Greg, as difficult as the challenge is of creating a master schedule for the year, he can't do that. Every 8 weeks we are assessing where our students are, what they need academically, and what they want to do post-grad. And so what we're fortunate enough is that under our Goodwill roof, we have this academy, which is also under my purview, that we're able to say, Greg can come and say, hey, I've got 10 people who want to be automotive techs. And then we can go down that pathway of doing, offering that and seeing the feasibility of doing so. And so, long answer to a very good question is yes, it will be adaptable to the employer needs and the student needs. Those are always 1A and 1B in our planning.
Thank you.
Mr. Baldwin?
So the proposed locations are Springdale, Jonesboro, and Fort Smith. You don't have you haven't identified exact locations yet. You're still looking. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So my question, I guess, would be for Desi is, can the panel approve proposed locations, or do we have to have exact spots to approve?
You can approve proposed locations. It's pretty common when a school is looking into moving into an area, and you see it much more frequently in the initial applications rather than in the licenses, but it's appropriate here too, where they know where they want to be, but because they haven't been approved yet, they haven't made any final plans for a specific location, so it's permissible.
Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to clarify, they did rescind their Tier 1 and Tier 2 waiver requests.
How did you all pick the cities that you're going in?
Looking at the data across the state, as Marcus mentioned, we look at potential population that needs the education, so it's need-based. When we look across the state, and we did the original plan, we looked at 5 schools in the state as the Goodwill plan here. And when we look at those locations, it's Northwest, Northeast, Central, of course, Fort Smith, and then it is either the West Memphis and that center, or it is another Central because of the sheer number of students that are here. So it's really need-based and how we're moving forward. Right now, looking at the Springdale and the Jonesboro, with our infrastructure that we have in our organization, we feel that we can best support those as our next steps. So that's why those are really highlighted as our next steps. We have our largest footprint at Goodwill is here in Central. Second largest is in Northwest. Third largest is in Northeast. So that's why we're looking at that.
And you all have added a page in here that's, I guess, a financial projection page. The NWA column, I guess, would be Springdale and Fort Smith, and the NEA column would be Jonesboro.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I guess I was pleasantly surprised that you're showing that you're going to make a margin in each of the years. Is that a fully built out margin, or is that year one profit I guess my question would be, how comfortable are you with your financial projections?
Really confident. I think the variables right now are building and occupancy and what it's going to cost to build those out. But from an operational standpoint, Excel centers are very lean historically, and so they're able to still support 350 students, but do so in as efficient a way possible. And so we're pretty confident and able to squeeze a little bit out at the end so that we have the reserve fund.
How long will it take to get 350 students in the new centers?
That's a great question. Ideally, it would be at school opening, but what we have seen, it's hard to tell, right? I think there are a lot of factors at play. When the first Excel Center opened in Indianapolis in 2010, they wanted to serve, I think it was 300 students, and by December of that year, they had a wait list of over 2,000. And so you don't really know until you present the opportunity. There's a lot of education to the community about here's what the Excel Center is, here's the opportunity that it affords. But we feel confident that we can build that enrollment pipeline to get to 350 within year one.
Okay, thank you.
All right. With the clarification around our waivers, I have no additional questions. So if there are no additional questions from panel members, I'll accept a motion.
I'll move approval of the request.
Second.
So I have a motion by Mr. Baldwin, a second by Dr. Williams to approve the Excel Center new campuses and increase their enrollment cap until their charter is reheard for 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. If you will go into your voting sheets, please, and make sure that you've entered your information. I would just like to say, on the behalf of Arkansans, I'd like to say thank you for opening an Excel Center in Arkansas. You're making a life-changing opportunity for many adults that I personally have known some of them. I taught GED and met people trying to change their lives. So I really believe that's what you're doing, and it's such a beautiful center. I encourage everyone now, as soon as it's safe and when you're ready, open your doors. It's really a beautiful facility and such an opportunity for our state and for our citizens. It's really impressive. Thank you. So we won't go through the process of reading all of the voting sheets. You can imagine it's pretty simple. So we appreciate you being here today. Mr. Johnston, I'm assuming this one is very fast.
Yes, ma'am. The last one is Northwest Arkansas Classical Academy has submitted an amendment request to change the name of the charter. The charter was originally approved in 2012 and serves students in grades K through 12 with a current enrollment cap of 1,500 students. Their charter is valid or scheduled to expire in June of 2028. Susan Provenza is here representing the charter, and we do have documentation that the local superintendents were notified 35 days prior to the hearing, and we just failed to upload that to the agenda, but we will do that.
If you will raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin.
I'm Susan Provenza. I'm Director of Classical Schools for Responsive Ed Arkansas. And like you said, this one is pretty fast. We are just asking for a name change to our amendment. And really, it's just about clarity and consistency across the schools so that there's not necessarily a geographical location in the name, and just to make it clear and simple. So we are asking for Founders Classical Academies of Arkansas for the charter name, and then each of the individual schools would be Founders Class Academy of Bentonville, Founders Classical Academy of Rogers, etc. So.
And that's the only change that you're making?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct?
That's the only change.
Any questions from the panel? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion. And let me say before I do that, you'll need to work with Tim and our staff so that we can help you get the LEA change form correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Will do.
I'll accept a motion.
I move approve.
All right, we have a motion from Ms. Wright McMurray,
Second.
second from Mr. Baldwin. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
you, ma'am.
You have a name change. Our panel members will go into their voting sheets and note how they voted, and then it'll be on the next regular state board meeting.
Perfect. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for waiting today.
Absolutely.
Panel members, any additional information or staff?
Really quick, I spoke to Grant this morning, Grant Hodges, and he wanted to renew his request to move the meeting date as he won't be able to attend on Tuesdays.
So, Mary Claire, I thought you had reached out to Mr. Hodges?
I have not reached out to Mr. Hodges. We were having some internal conversations about when it might be feasible to move the meeting. Monday is not a feasible option for the department to have the meeting. So we can consider moving the meeting when it is a shorter meeting like this to perhaps the afternoon on Tuesdays. The thing that comes up with that is right now, if we started this meeting at noon, we would get out on time. But if something ran long, you run into perhaps having to be here after the time that the building is open, which I don't think we want to run into. We can consider moving also to Wednesday, but if I remember correctly, Mr. Hodges had a conflict on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. So on the days where we have a 2-day panel meeting, we won't be able to schedule it to where it would fit his schedule 100%. So I think if the panel would like to consider moving the meetings to Wednesdays, we can consider doing that, to do Wednesday mornings instead of Tuesday mornings.
Not an option for me.
I'm sorry, Dr. Williams?
Not an option for me.
Okay. So I think we run into some difficulties there. But on the days when we have the 2-day meeting, I think it should be feasible for Mr. Hodges to be there all day on Wednesday and then Tuesday afternoons. And that is 4 meetings a year, so he'll be able to attend those.
Do you mind reaching out to him and having a conversation and see how we best accommodate all panel members to participate the best we can, knowing that sometimes we just can't. That's why we have a large panel.
Absolutely. And we had discussed at the last meeting sending out a poll, but internally when we started trying to play with everyone's internal calendar, we realized that there were basically one option, which was Wednesday. So Tim and I will reach out to Mr. Hodges and have some conversations there to see what can be done.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Pilkington.
Any other business? Then I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Motion from Ms. Wright McMurray, second from Dr. Williams.
Yes.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your attendance and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you.